I'm going to start this video by talking my shit for once. Yes, the markets are pumping. Yes, your portfolio is looking healthier. In hindsight, it looked so easy, right? Just hold, forget about it, and wait for better times. So why were so many people panic selling? Why were so many YouTubers and influencers pivoting their opinions from bullish to bearish, back to bullish just to get views? How many were still taking payments, shilling projects in the bad times and taking advantage of their audience? I saw many. Personally, I did none of the above, and I know my community will vouch for me here. The receipts are all there, from messages in my Discord, to constant tweets, to regular videos. I know they were really tough times, but remaining objective was key. I made sure to put out videos often, analysing the markets, talking about my prior experiences and what you should all be doing. The therapy couch really came in clutch. I know I'm only a small channel, but to those of you who paid attention, thank you very much. I appreciate it, honestly. I also didn't want to constantly mention new projects, as capital protection was the goal. We required a more defensive than offensive approach. I was hit up by a few projects wanting to collab, but I declined. Remember, transparency is very important to me. Now, let's talk about performances. There were a few coins which I mentioned regularly throughout the last few months, the ones I said I was buying. They have all bounced back extremely well. Ethereum I was DCAing for a while. I bought lots more anyone. I mentioned BitTensor, Cubic, Rio, Quill. Yes, most projects have recovered nicely. I'm not an idiot, but on these particular ones, we are already up 2 to 4x. And the craziest part is, all of these can still 10x plus from this position. It's a joke. So if you had the courage to buy, congrats. However, it ain't over, and more projects will be making an appearance on this channel, so subscribe and join the free Discord if interested. What's up guys, I hope you're doing stupendously well in the recent green times. There's been a lot going on. I'll try to keep it as concise and straight to the point as possible. We'll look at Bitcoin, the charts and the fundamentals to see what's happened and where we could be headed. We'll look at macroeconomics and some indicators we've been following along to see if we are still on schedule. And then we'll take a look at ETH, what this means, and possibly a few other charts. At the end, I've also got a very important tip for you all. As always, whilst I am a financial advisor, none of this is financial advice. Starting off with Bitcoin, it's been on a crazy run lately. We should know from the past, as recent as April and November 2024, that when this wants to run, it will run. We went all the way to 120k plus in such a short space of time. Fantastic performance, and it has really brought back much needed belief and sentiment to the market. I think a lot of people needed to see this to remind themselves of what's possible in crypto. If you saw my last video, you know I had a feeling that this explosive leg up was coming. We had been stuck in a sideways pattern for a while, showing strength on dips. Bitcoin was struggling to drop below 100k, so it was only a matter of time when a few decisions went our way, geopolitically and so on, that we would break and pump upwards. Very quickly, we are not permabulls in this community. When I believe the cycle is over, I will be mentioning it using variables such as the 50-week moving average, sentiment and other various indicators, but right now it doesn't call for it. So that begs the question, is the top in? I initially had the top for this cycle being at 125k to 150k in that region in conjunction with the 4-year cycle. However, we are very close to that lower threshold right now. We also have to factor in that we have done this all whilst being in a contractionary monetary policy. When the Fed decide to cut rates and increase liquidity and confidence, there's no way that we don't go up further. So all these top predictions are very difficult to navigate. I know some people are calling for an early cycle top, as in by the end of summer. I see why they would think that, but with rate cuts expected in September and easing geopolitical tensions, I don't see how Q4 is not explosive for risk assets. Does that mean we will continue going up until Q4? No, I can kind of see it playing out like this. We get the next few weeks, end of July into August, pumping and looking good. Then perhaps the end of August going into September, we get a big correction. Remember, we went up very high, very fast for a lot of coins, so it is to be expected. Also, September is historically a poor month for crypto. So we get our drawback, but then we could catapult upwards in October, November, December, just like we did last year. And hopefully that would be the climax of all climaxes, no pun intended, and we should all have a full exit plan in place. Having said that, in the next few weeks, please look to take profits on some coins. It doesn't have to be all of them or a lot, but psychologically, please get into the habit of doing so. because if we do correct, you'll have ammo on the side to reload and stock up for the next pump. Quick break to ask, why are you not part of the best free community in crypto? Join over 1,000 people determined to make money and help each other out. Sign up to the email newsletter too, it's all free, you've got no excuse, link down below. Inflows have continued to look healthy for Bitcoin. We had the second largest day for inflows ever, 1.18 billion a few days ago, which is kind of funny because whilst it does feel like a lot is going on around us, we still aren't in extreme greed territory yet. Yes, this indicator may not be the most accurate when used by itself, but it's still good for sentiment. So again, it implies we've got higher to go for both Bitcoin and altcoins. For reference, we've been in extreme greed twice properly so far this cycle, in November, December 2024, and also in the Q1, Q2 pump at the start of 2024. Let's see if we can push into this region in the coming weeks, as it will be a good sign to lock in some profits. Alongside this, Google searches have increased a little in the past few weeks for Bitcoin, but we're still a long way off the end of 2024 and also 2021. It kind of aligns, to be honest. Doesn't really feel like retail is making a comeback to crypto just yet. Perhaps it's too soon. They need to see more sustained returns, more monstrous returns, or maybe rate cuts, I don't know. But yeah, still plenty of room to grow here. And finally, Bitcoin dominance is looking good. Well, technically bad, but that's good. Look at this absolute demon of a red candle, dropping us from 64.5% to 61%. This is exactly what we've been needing. Bitcoin price to remain stable or even increasing gradually whilst Bitcoin dominance decreases. That's literally what alt season is. Long may this downtrend continue. To what level? 55, 56 may be a level to target. That's what we hit at the end of last year. But honestly, just keep fucking dropping. Sub 50 would be incredible. Again, if we can keep or remain constant in Bitcoin's price, whether that's possible or not with ETFs, regulations, institutes, nation states, and so on, I'm not sure, but the downtrend is very important and yeah, nice to see. Some big pieces of news came out recently. The Genius Act was passed in Congress, with Trump expected to sign into law soon. This is the first major national crypto legislation and is expected to provide clearer rules around crypto, stablecoins, better regulation, and essentially increases mainstream adoption. It doesn't really need me to say how big this could potentially be. I would expect a lot more firms and individuals to begin investing in stablecoins at the very minimum, majority of which sit upon Ethereum, so that's excellent for the chain, but this should also in turn bring more attention and innovation onto crypto in general. Trump also implied he wants to open up retirement funds to being able to invest in crypto. The funds are worth an estimated $9 trillion. Imagine a sector with this market size being opened up to cryptocurrency. It isn't guaranteed and he could just be talking, but the speculation and potential is definitely there and worth noting. We had the CPI data released last week. It came in above expectations at 2.7%, still above the Fed's target of 2%, but not horrifically bad. The market didn't seem to react too negatively to this news, so whilst trueflation has us at closer to their target, that's not the metric the Fed will be using, and therefore, rate cuts in July still seem very unlikely. I think we all expect this now, despite some within the Federal Reserve calling for a cut, but oh well, what can we do, right? September seems to be the date for the strategy pivot and aligns well with the 4-year cycle theory. Global liquidity continues to look decent. We have continued the uptrend and we are in what appears to be a small pullback for now. We'll have to wait to see more data. Let's hope this hasn't topped. But this has provided us with a nice, relatively accurate template for the market this whole cycle. This indicator right now incorporates various M2 supplies around the world and has also been offset by 75 days. I know people hate on this indicator because too many know about it and trade it or some BS, but look, strip it back down. At a core level, rising liquidity around the globe means more money in economies, means more money to invest, means more money potentially invested into risk assets like crypto, and therefore price goes up. Keep it simple. The dollar has had a recent bounce. Not sure if that's due to the lack of rate cuts expected by the Fed or not, but it hasn't had a dramatic impact on our investments. It may be boring here for a while, but I would expect the downtrend to continue once the Fed begin their rate cuts. Another indicator which is interesting and one I don't see mentioned too often is stablecoin dominance. I have a combined USDT and USDC chart here. Just like Bitcoin dominance, we want this to be low as it implies investors are confident enough to rotate their stablecoins into altcoins or Bitcoin. The downtrend has started. I've marked out some zones which would signify alt season from previous data. We don't have to hit them, but it's again more so this downtrend pattern which we would like to see continuing. I also don't know what impact the Genius Act will have on this indicator in the future, if more and more institutes or individuals look to invest in stablecoins, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Moving on to my favorite altcoin, no longer a shitcoin, Ethereum. Guys, this makes me so damn happy, so happy. When this coin was at its worst, down in the dumps, when everyone fell out of love, started looking at alternatives, saying Solana would take over, XRP, Sui, whatever, I stayed loyal. Felt like a madman or just a delusional, hopeless romantic in a way, but it's now paying dividends. The king has decided to rise up from the ashes and remind everyone who's boss. You all know I was DCing into ETH for months at the start of this year, and I'm up very nicely on that bag now. I always knew this was coming, it was a matter of when, not if. You just can't ignore the ETFs, the inflows, the volumes, and the reputation of this giant. But anyway, the chart. I had this zone mapped out for a while, saying it would be tough to break out. I said once we do get past the resistance and can breach 3k, it would be clear skies above. People, that's exactly what's happened. We are flying. It's been great to watch, and it has single-handedly pulled up all of our altcoins with it. I mentioned a couple months back that when ETH goes, it will be like Bitcoin. Price discovery, hard to put a finish line on where it will end up. The key level right now is 4k. We've tried it twice so far this cycle and failed to hold above for any meaningful time. This could provide some resistance, but again, just like with 3k, I think if we can get above this level, the run to break all-time highs will be on the cards and an expected outcome. As for price targets, again, just like with Bitcoin, this is pure speculation. I find it so difficult to ascertain with any certainty what figure to spit out. Realistically, 6 to 7k per ETH sounds attainable. 10k is what a lot of bulls are saying. I've also seen 15k, don't know where they're getting that from, but I'm not sure how feasible all of this is. We'll just have to play it by ear in conjunction with our other metrics. Just want to make another point out of it. Seeing this is just magnifique. The ETH ETFs have also looked amazing. We had our largest inflow day ever at over $700 million coming in, which signifies, of course, the institutes and investors are starting to see the appeal and attraction of Ethereum. It wouldn't surprise me if the discussions were centered around Ethereum probably outperforming Bitcoin for the remainder of this cycle. The ETH BTC chart is looking good but shit at the same time. Good because, as we mentioned previously, the bottom has been in, and look at this huge fuck off candle. Ethereum is now about 3.2% relative to Bitcoin, so much better than the less than 2% levels we were seeing, which was insanity. However, it's still shit because we are so far off where we need to be. Currently only back at Jan 2025 levels. This needs to continue to put in the work. More of these candles, keep the uptrend going, and we'll monitor the required level on a regular basis. I don't really have a target area for this one just yet. We've already discussed the Genius Act and stablecoins and how this would all be good for Ethereum, but the Nasdaq wants to add staking for the BlackRock ETH ETF. This is going under the radar, but it's massive news if confirmed. It would allow many investors a solid yield on this asset via the ETF, which would bring in more demand over the Bitcoin ETF for many investors. Imagine the inflows if this gets confirmed. I know a massive argument last year was why would you invest in the Ethereum ETF if you could just buy the Bitcoin one? Well, now you're getting a guaranteed yield. I'm sure that means a lot to many people. I don't want to keep this video too long, so I'm just going to wrap it up with a quick note on mindset. Not enough people mention this. People will discuss technicals and fundamentals till the cows come home, but what about psychology? Your emotional intelligence is just as, if not more important here. Your bags will start to fly soon. You will see coins doing a 5x, 10x plus in a very short space of time, and naturally you'll think it's going to keep going up. Please draw upon the pain you experienced at the start of this year, how quickly it can all turn. We're approaching the end game now, and you have to leave with something. It's not going to be easy, but just make a conscious effort now to start thinking about taking profits, exiting, not looking back, etc. Get the mindset prepped and ready so you're not caught lacking. I'll be making more videos on the coins we should be buying early, profit taking and psychology tips, market updates and so on. So please subscribe if you're interested. Thank you so much for the ongoing support and for watching this video. Please join the free Discord and I'll catch you all in the next one. Take care.